The little boy appeared beside me just as they were lowering my father's coffin into the ground. He couldn't have been older than 7. His suit was too big, his shoes muddy, and tears streaked his face. Before I could speak, he grabbed my hand. "You're my sister." I stared at him. "What?" He swallowed. "Daddy said if anything happened to him, I had to find you." My heart stopped, because the man being buried in front of us was my father. And as far as I knew, I was his only child. My name is Claire Bennett. Until that rainy Saturday, I thought I knew everything about my father. After my mother died 12 years earlier, he always told me, "It's just you and me now, kiddo." So when this boy appeared at his grave, I felt anger, not curiosity. "Who brought you here?" I asked. He pointed toward the cemetery gate. A dark-haired woman stood under a black umbrella. When she saw me looking, she lowered her eyes. "What's your name?" I asked the boy. "Ethan." "Last name?" He hesitated. "Bennett." My last name. Before I could speak, my Aunt Margaret walked toward us. The second she saw Ethan, the color drained from her face. "Oh, Robert," she whispered. "What did you do?" I grabbed her arm. "You know him?" "Claire, not here." "My father is being buried, and a child just called me his sister." "Where else should we talk about it?" The woman approached and put a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "My name is Anna," she said. "How did you know my father?" Robert was Ethan's father. 6 words shattered 30 years of memories. "That's impossible." "I never knew Robert while your mother was alive," Anna said. "Ethan was 7. My father had another child 5 years after Mom died and never told me." I turned to Margaret. "You knew?" She looked down. "How long?" "Since Ethan was born." 7 years, my aunt had known. My father had looked me in the eyes and said nothing. I walked toward my car before I said something I would regret. Then I heard small footsteps behind me. "Claire." Ethan was holding a wooden box. I recognized it immediately. My father had kept it on the highest shelf of his bedroom closet for years. "Daddy said this was yours. How did you get it?" "He gave it to Mom before he went to the hospital." Dad had suffered a massive heart attack 3 days earlier. By the time I arrived, he was unconscious. Ethan pulled a brass key from his pocket. "He said you'd be angry first." I stared at him. "He told me you might not want me," Ethan whispered. "But he said I should wait." My anger had nowhere to go. He was only a child at our father's funeral. I unlocked the box. Inside were photographs. Dad holding newborn Ethan, teaching him to ride a bike, standing beside birthday cakes and Christmas trees. 7 years of a hidden life. Then I found a photograph that made my hands shake. It was me, standing outside a restaurant on my 29th birthday. That night, Dad had told me he was sick and couldn't come. But in the background of the photo, across the street, stood my father. Beside him was Ethan. I flipped the picture over. In Dad's handwriting were the words, "I wanted my children to meet today." I lost my courage. I sat in my car. There were more pictures of me, graduation, birthdays, holidays. Some I had sent Dad. Others had been taken from a distance. On one photo, in blue marker, Ethan had written, "My sister Claire is pretty." I looked at Anna. "Why did he hide him?" She took a breath. "Because he thought he was protecting you." "From what?" "From losing your mother again." After Mom died, I had fallen apart. I stopped eating, quit my job, and barely left my apartment. Years later, Dad met Anna. "We were friends first," she said. "Then we became more." "When did he know about Ethan?" "The week of your mother's death anniversary." I remembered that week. I had stayed at Dad's house crying and told him that if he ever started another family, it would feel like he had replaced Mom. I had been grieving. Dad remembered every word. "He wanted to tell you," Anna said. "Then he kept postponing it. After your birthday, after Christmas, when Ethan was older." That's cowardly. Yes, Anna said. He knew. She didn't defend him. Were you still together? No, we separated when Ethan was 3. But Robert never stopped being his father. Then a thought hit me. Why weren't you at the hospital? Anna's expression changed. We were there Monday. Monday? His heart attack was Tuesday. Margaret stepped closer. Your father had chest pain for weeks. He told me it was indigestion. He lied, she said. Again. Anna opened her purse and handed me an envelope. My name was written on it. Claire. I tore it open. Claire, if you're reading this, I failed to do the bravest thing while I still had time. You have a brother. His name is Ethan. I hid him because I was ashamed of my fear, not ashamed of him. Every year I promised I would introduce you. Every year I became more afraid that the longer I waited, the more you would hate me. You probably do. But please don't punish Ethan for my mistake. I had to stop reading. Ethan stood beside Anna, watching me silently. I continued. He knows everything about you, your favorite movie, the college you attended, how you broke your wrist when you were 10. To him, you have always been his big sister. You just didn't know it yet. All those years, Dad had given Ethan a sister through stories and photographs while keeping him invisible from me. Then I reached the next line. There is one more thing you need to know. The house is not yours alone. I froze. Dad had always told me our family home would be mine someday. I looked at Margaret. Keep reading, she whispered. The house belongs equally to you and Ethan. So does everything else I have. No lawyer can force you to become family. Money can divide property. It cannot create love. That choice belongs to you. My first thought ashamed me. Half? This child would inherit half the home where my mother raised me, the roses she planted, the rooms filled with her memory. Then Ethan spoke. I don't want your house. I looked at him. His lip trembled. I just want my dad back. Something inside me broke. He had lost the same person I had. I crouched in front of him. Did you know Dad was sick? Ethan shook his head. He said doctors were going to fix his heart. Then he reached into his jacket and handed me a folded piece of paper. It was a child's drawing. 4 stick figures stood outside a blue house. Dad, Mom, Ethan, Claire. Above them, he had written, My whole family. My throat closed. He said maybe one day we could all have dinner, Ethan whispered. But now he can't come. I pulled him into my arms. At first, he went stiff. Then his tiny arms wrapped around my neck and he began to sob. The deep cries of a child who had been trying to stay brave. I cried with him. Before we left the cemetery, Ethan looked up at me. Are you still my sister? Biology said yes. Dad's secret said yes. But family was no longer about what Dad had done. It was about what I would do next. Yes, I said. 3 weeks later, Anna brought Ethan to Dad's house. He walked slowly through the rooms. In the hallway, he stopped beside a picture of Dad and me at my college graduation. Can we put one of me here too? I found a photo Anna had given me. Dad stood behind Ethan with his hands on his shoulders. I placed it beside mine. Then I put an empty frame next to them. What's that for? Ethan asked. Our first picture together. 6 months have passed. I'm still angry at my father sometimes. Understanding his fear doesn't make his lie right. He stole 7 years from us. Birthdays, Christmases, years when my little brother knew my name while I didn't know he existed. But he also left us one last chance. Last Sunday, Ethan and I visited his grave. Ethan brought 2 toy cars because Dad used to race them across the kitchen floor. I brought Dad's favorite coffee. Before we left, Ethan slipped his hand into mine, just as he had at the funeral. Claire? Yeah. I think Dad knew you'd like me. I smiled. Why? Because he told me you always forgive people you love. I looked at Dad's name carved into the stone. Then at the little boy holding my hand. Dad had left behind a terrible secret. But inside that secret, he had also left me a brother. Sometimes the people we love disappoint us. Sometimes they leave mistakes too big to excuse and questions we'll never answer. But sometimes, after the anger and grief, something unexpected is waiting. Not at the end of the story, at the beginning of a new one. Ethan squeezed my hand. Ready, sis? For the first time, the word felt natural. It felt like it had been waiting 7 years for me. Yeah, little brother. I squeezed his hand back. Let's go home.